whereas with lower testosterone levels, it's just like you almost skew in that direction of when you're bulking, when you're lifting weights and eating a lot, a surplus of calories to build muscle, we end up kind of looking like the fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And this is the Thunder Channel on nootropics, on testosterone, on biohacking, on male performance. Subscribe to the channel if any of that interests you. Hit the bell to get notified of all future content. Hit the like button, please. I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the like button, bro. I would really appreciate it. I would really appreciate it if you just hit that like button. Behind this channel is a nootropics company that also makes products regarding performance, testosterone, etc. You can get all our products at livecortex.com. Probably the most popular is the Torque Nootropic Stack, and all that stuff is in the description of this video. All right, so what we're going to do in this video is I want to cut to a video by Mark Bell. Those of you that don't know who Mark Bell is, please follow the guy's channel. They talk about bodybuilding, TRT, all manner of things related to like just becoming a better man. I love their channel. They have a podcast and get together and talk about all this good shit where they talked about TRT and essentially what it felt like to get on testosterone replacement therapy. And there's a couple really cool points that I kind of want to highlight and discuss that's relevant to me and relevant to most guys that get on TRT that I think will be entertaining and educational for people. So let's just jump right into the video.
Actually, I want to ask both of you guys this, if you remember. How did it feel to get on test? If like, what changed?
I'll let Andrew start on that.
Yeah, I remember getting my labs done years ago before any of this. And I remember actually I was talking to Marcus Filipino Thunder about it. And I was like, hey, my test is at like 350 or whatever. And he's like, well, it's low range for sure, but like you're not like totally tanked. And we were just talking about testosterone. And this is why I use this verbiage when we were talking about it. But he was like, don't you want to feel like more of a man? And I was like, well, yeah, but like I don't even know what the fuck that means, So when I initially started taking TRT, I started with the traditional dose that a lot of people get recommended, which is 200 milligrams per week. That's kind of almost like base, and then you adjust from there.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple things to address. So yeah, he was essentially borderline hypogonadal, and like it was an interesting reference where he said like doc or whoever was like, oh, you're normal, but you're kind of in the low range normal. There is an epidemic these days of guys being on the low end of normal of testosterone, but still being told that they're normal. And they've got symptoms related to low testosterone, right? They essentially have hypogonadal symptoms, but being a little bit above the reference range. And that's just what happens. Ultimately, to feel really good in terms of muscle building and strength and energy and libido and erection quality, all these positive things that happen when your testosterone levels are in check, you kind of need to be 600 nanograms per deciliter plus total test, really pushing 800 plus, adequate levels of free test, estradiol in the 18 to 25 picograms per milliliter range for most guys. Some people can get away with higher. Adequate levels of DHT, right? You kind of need to be up there to feel good. And there's a lot of guys that are going to doc and, they're 38 years old or something. They're testing tests and, total test is 400. And doc's like, you know what? You're normal. There's nothing we can really do about this. But they've got all the symptoms of being essentially hypogonadal. That's why it's useful to go to HRT telemedicine clinics, because some of them, even though you're in range, will actually still prescribe testosterone because they're treating symptoms, not necessarily or exclusively labs, and the low end of the reference range at that. So let's continue.
It was weird because I never thought that I had like a low libido. But holy shit, when I got on that, I felt like the hunger was through the roof for sex. Like, and I told my wife about it. I'm like, hey, I'm hearing that, like, I need to let you know that I might just really be more in need.
You might start getting a little sore.
Yeah. No, I did feel more like a man. Okay. As Mark knows, like when I first met him, I was extremely timid. I was hiding behind the camera at all times. If I had to speak up, it was like a very hard, difficult thing to do. Like it was like nerve wracking. Like, God, like I have to tell Mark that shot didn't work out. We got to do it again or something. Like it would be a thing that was constantly running through my mind that I just would have to eventually work out. And then hanging out with Mark so much that I started to break out of my shell. So it was already happening. So you could say that this is like, oh, this is just a period of time where I'm like developing better people skills or whatever it may be. But as soon as I got on test, like I was more assertive. I was more aggressive for the things that I wanted. So like if I needed a shot or something, I would just call for it. I would just yell for it. I wouldn't be like, hey guys, is it cool if we do X, Y, and Z? Just like,
okay. Great fucking point, dude. Like, listen, here's the bottom line. A lot of guys will ask me about nootropics for confidence, right? Or nootropics for situations where they're going to go out and there's going to be chicks out, like in social environments or something. And how do you improve confidence? And it's like, well, yeah, there is a baseline orientation for confidence, and it largely has to do with like who you are as a man, whether or not you're actually executing what most men should be executing, which is like you have goals, you live your life to hit those goals, you sit kind of mired in the fucking challenges that come up along the way, and that just makes you a better guy, right? And you also know who you are, like what you're good at, what your career path is, like what you truly want to do. You're not being pushed to do things you don't want to do. All those things contribute to confidence. But at the same time, I tell guys when like, hey, what nootropics should I be using for confidence in social situations? Look at your testosterone, right? Because the moment your testosterone gets above 600, 700, 800 plus nanograms per deciliter total test, ideally, and you're siphoning that to free test adequately, making enough DHT, you're managing estradiol, confidence goes through the roof, right? You will no longer be meager and non-assertive, right? You just like know what you want, and in situations where you need something to happen, you're going to be dictating it. And that's kind of just how it works. You don't feel bad about it. So stop looking to nootropics necessarily if you have low testosterone for confidence. This guy makes a great point. Let's continue.
We need to do this. Let's go.
I remember we do photo shoots and stuff, and you would just place people in certain spots and say, hey, be here and do this and turn this way.
Yeah.
Hey, talent, get in line.
Yeah.
Let's skip to Mark's experience. I think that was super great. Andrew's experience was cool. Guys, I love your podcast. Keep up the good work. I love watching. And let's see what Mark has to say about his experience on TRT.
The impact for me is just, it's my own individual story. It's my own individual experience. I was already way into lifting. I've already been lifting for a long time. I started lifting around 11, 12 years old. Probably got kind of serious about lifting at like 14, 15, which is really early. It wasn't until I was about 25 when I started to take testosterone. I was already pretty big. I was already built decently, 210 pounds or so. Whenever I'd try to lean out, I would get a little skinnier than I'd like. This is when I was natural. And I would be like 200, and it just didn't look right to me. And then I'd try to like bulk up, and then I would be like 220, and it just looked too fat to me.
Okay, before we continue, great point. I mean, this is a huge point. This is one of the predominant reasons having high testosterone and, exogenously administered testosterone via TRT is a real benefit for guys that want to be in good shape and like to lift weights. Because yes, first of all, it is a lot easier to retain lean mass. It's a way easier to sort of shift that ratio between body fat and lean mass disproportionately in favor of lean mass. And then, when you're doing things like cutting, bulking, when you're bulking, it's easier to get less bloaty and fat looking, whereas with lower testosterone levels, it's just like you almost skew in that direction of when you're bulking, when you're lifting weights and eating a lot, a surplus of calories to build muscle, we end up kind of looking like the fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And at the same time, cutting is exceptionally hard, right? You're in a caloric deficit, you're in an energy deficit, your body is not consuming and you don't have available to you enough energy based on the energy that you're expending at the gym. So it just makes your workouts painstaking, right? It's harder. You're tired. You recover like shit. You feel like shit, but you're cutting and you look okay, right? You're starting to see what muscle's left over, but you're more catabolic in that state, right? Like you're not going to retain as much lean mass as you would if you were on testosterone and you're cutting, or you're on TRT or your testosterone's super high and you're cutting. It's a hell of a lot easier, right? You don't really lose all that much strength. Recovery doesn't really take that much of a hit. Everything is just way easier. So that Mark makes a great point there.
So I couldn't, I kind of had the problem, which a lot of people have now, is they won't really commit to the bulk because they're too uncomfortable being a little chubby for a little while, and they won't commit to the cut because they just get weaker sometimes. So anyway, that was that with that stuff. But when I took testosterone, it had a really profound impact immediately because I was already training. I was already training hard. I was already into powerlifting. I was already fairly strong, but it just amplified everything. It just boosted everything up. There really wasn't much of like a waiting period. It was like I took stuff and then I was able just to handle more pretty quickly. And so that's what led to the gains happening so quickly.
Yeah.
Now, one of the first things, the other thing to keep in mind here is that this was not TRT. This was not HRT. This was doing a steroid cycle. This is what I did. That's why I'm trying to say that my experience is going to be different, and it's probably amplified. But I pretty
Yeah, no, that's a good point, right? The difference between TRT, like just regular TRT dosing, which you may consider between 100 and 150 milligrams a week of testosterone, and a cycle is either the cycle is testosterone, but it's in the 300 to 700 or 1,000 milligrams per week, or it's a, essentially a testosterone derivative or an otherwise, anabolic steroid, like name your steroid, right? Whether it's Anavar or it's Proviron or it is Trenbolone, God forbid, there's a bunch of them. And so at that level, let's just call it 300 milligrams of testosterone a week. Yeah. All of those things that are achievable on TRT, like the enhanced recovery, like it's easier to cut, like when you're bulking, you don't get as fat, you retain more lean mass, you look more muscular. TRT will provide that too. It's just to a lesser extent compared to a steroid cycle. Steroids are TRT on steroids, if that, makes sense. So just wanted to draw that distinction. But again, with TRT, with the right dose for you, you're going to get all those anabolic effects, but, without some of the side effects that come with heavy steroid cycles.
pretty much instantly gained about 30 pounds.
When you say instantly, so how long did that shit take?
Just a couple of months. Just a couple of months. I mean, it was like, at least that's what it felt like. Maybe if I was to look back and really know, maybe it was longer.
What do you guys think happens when somebody is like, okay, you know what? I want to move the needle. I want to become more of a man. Like it, you feel more aggressive. You want to have more sex. You want to do harder things, right? But you don't have the right habits set in. It seems like you could hop on test. Your test will go up potentially to normal or super physiological levels. But then as maybe you're growing and you're doing more, maybe you still have bad eating habits. Maybe you're not getting enough sleep. That could seem like an equation to maybe become more unhealthy.
Yeah, no, this is a great point. Yeah, TRT is not going to solve everybody's problems. A lot of guys go on hoping that it will. And for a lot of people, the symptoms that they're having, it does alleviate or completely eliminate, right? Libido problems, especially erection quality issues, strength recovery, all those kind of things. But yes, if 4 days a week you fucking go and drink 4 or 5 beers or shots or wine or whatever, and then on the weekend you maybe drink, double that, then, first of all, you're going to be aromatizing a good degree of your testosterone to estrogen. So that's going to mess with your protocol in a way, which is going to have to, force you to manage estradiol a little more aggressively, which is going to be an absolute pain in the ass. It always is. But at the same time, yeah, you're going to recover less effectively. Like you're not going to retain as much lean mass via that, testosterone to estradiol conversion. The energy dynamics that radically improve when you have high levels of testosterone, especially when you're administering TRT exogenously, probably aren't going to be as optimal if your lifestyle is shitty. Like, no one wants to hear that you're doing the wrong thing in lifestyle. You stop fucking smoking or smoking pot or drinking booze and sleeping like shit and all this stuff and eating Pringles rather than like, a healthy meal or something. But it's true. Okay. TRT is not the cure all to your terrible habits. It certainly couldn't be. Look, I mean, the bottom line is testosterone replacement therapy is a game changer for most men, right? I mean, you're going to respond to it relatively quickly, assuming that you don't have some underlying problems that are really, really major. Like guys that go on TRT and 8 weeks later, they have no difference in energy. There's something else going on, whether it's a fatigue syndrome from this or that. They've got like post-COVID fatigue or post-viral fatigue, or they're dealing with some other like long-standing issue that is messing with their physiology, messing with potentially ATP, energy production dynamics. And so like you've got to get that straight before testosterone is going to help you. Now, test is going to do a lot of things though, on the other hand, for people that do have some of those deficiencies. As an example, if dopamine isn't firing correctly, we do know that testosterone is going to help you both synthesize via tyrosine hydroxylase, the dopamine conversion enzyme upregulation, more testosterone, but at the same time release more of the catecholamine neurotransmitters like dopamine and noradrenaline. So you'll be more alert and in that sort of sympathetic dominant state either way in terms of energy when testosterone is in the picture. But if you've got stuff that you need to work on otherwise that, testosterone just wouldn't address or couldn't address physiologically, you definitely have to work on all that stuff too. But generally speaking, right, for the average guy, I mean, the difference between 300 or 400 nanograms per deciliter total testosterone and what is probably 20 to 24 picograms per milliliter estradiol, low end of the reference range free testosterone, and 1,000 total tests would probably end up being like 30 or so picograms per milliliter estradiol. And high end of the reference range free testosterone is enormous. Again, recovery is easier, way easier to retain lean mass, put on lean mass. When you go into bulk bulks, you don't necessarily look like an absolute fatty, right? It's just like easier to stay lean looking when you have more calories. You're partitioning them differently. You've got increased muscle protein synthesis. Now, sex drive, libido, EQ. Let's talk about that for a sec. Yeah, for most guys, they're going to have a radical improvement in the desire to have sex, erection quality via the nitric oxide, as well as the androgen receptor binding that takes place in the smooth muscle tissue of the penis. You know, bumping estrogen up, you know, a little bit, but not too much, is going to enhance libido to an extent for lots of guys. You know, and if you're dealing with some sort of libido or erection quality problem, if the ester is right for you, like some guys do better on cream, right? Can't explain it other than the scrotal DHT, the 5-alpha reducing of testosterone to DHT, and that is just helping their sex drive and libido more. But if the ester is right for you, because some guys also will do better on testosterone propionate versus cypionate via the half-lives, right? Then yeah, your libido and erection quality, etc., is going to be substantially better. Except for the guys that have real major issues relative to sexual function, like if they're coming off of an SSRI, or they have post-finasteride syndrome, or they've taken ashwagandha and or lion's mane and it fuss with their sexual function to some capacity. Then, you know, there's probably then going to be a much more sort of tightly dialed in approach, or there has to be, in order for you to feel good on testosterone in terms of libido and erection quality. Like, you're going to need to really push to get the T in the right level, to get estradiol in a very particular range for you. You probably need to go on a gonadotropin replacement too to make adequate neurosteroids. And so it's a little different for people with sexual dysfunction going in that's caused by some pharmaceutical drug or whatever. But ultimately, HRT, the right protocol, is the solution for those guys too. It's just a little trickier and harder depending on the situation. But what's the moral of the story? Yeah, I mean, for most guys, you know, going on TRT, like, it's a great experience, right? I mean, it just like changes so many dynamics of you being a man. Yeah, you're going to be more assertive. Yes, you're going to put on lean mass easier. Yeah, you'll want to go to the gym. Yes, your recovery is going to be substantially better. And while all those things are great, you got to keep in mind, like, you're entering a realm, like engaging like a physiological upgrade of total optimization, right? So like, you need to be, in terms of your lifestyle, your diet, your sleeping habits, your boozing and fucking recreational shit, you need to be aligned with this new upgrade as well to help it to revolutionize you and your health and your energy as a guy, right? If you're doing everything else really, really well and you're optimized that way, and then you bring TRT on top of that, I mean, you're going to be a completely different animal, bro. Productivity wise, energy wise, assertiveness and confidence wise, and, you know, otherwise. For those of you that are thinking about going on TRT, I actually wrote a digital book on it. You can get that at livecortex.com. It's called Getting on TRT, right? It takes my experience, which is about 6 years in managing men's protocols on TRT, and then jumping on TRT myself, and synthesizes it into a downloadable digital guide. There's all manner of like really cool graphics, from how to inject, to where, to what protocols actually make sense, to how to manage estrogen or whether or not you should manage estrogen. There's just a lot of really good information in this guide. It's called Getting on TRT. Everything you need to know to get started on testosterone replacement therapy. You can have it downloaded literally in under a minute once you purchase it, and it's an instantly accessible 51-page PDF guide. You can get that at livecortex.com. The link will be right in the description of this video. You guys know the drill about nootropics. I built 2 powerful nootropics. One is out of stock, Cortex, and you know, we're building another V2 version, which is going to be sick and launching in July. But for right now, the Torque stack is obviously still in stock. The most purchased stack on the internet has to be. We blow through inventory because people like 6 to 8 hours of clean stimulant energy, motivation in a pill, right? Like the best smart drug supplement you could actually buy for the price. A lot of these overhyped, overpriced nootropic supplements are not put together correctly, and they're $89 or $100 and something, or God forbid, $300 and something. Look, do yourself a favor and go buy a bottle of the Torque Nootropic Stack. Take 2 capsules and thank me later. Link is in the description of this video. If you need to hire me to dial in your TRT protocol, to formulate nootropic regimens for you, to give advice on your energy, to interpret your blood work and give you advice on what to do, full-on protocols, to email consults, to one-on-one programs, they can all be found at livecortex.com or in the description of this video. All right, everyone, it's been a pleasure being with you. Mark Bell and all his boys, appreciate your guys' content. Thanks for giving me, like, you know, content to do commentary on. I really appreciate everything you guys do and all of your content. So rock on. Everybody else, live stream coming this weekend, so look forward to that. Oh no, I won't be doing a live stream. I will not be doing a live stream this Saturday because I got to be traveling, but we'll be back to live streams the following Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. All right, so look forward to that. Make sure you have notifications. Hit the bell to get notified of all future content, and please hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. Yeah, bro. I would really, no pressure or anything. No pressure, bro. No pressure, man. All right. Later.